Good evening and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. In case you haven't noticed, we're in the middle of a federal election, and I have been trying to interview a couple of different candidates from different political parties from across the GTA, and I have been really surprised at how many people have recommended that I meet and introduce you to tonight Melissa Lantsman, who is the Conservative Party candidate in Thornhill. I've had people from conservatives to former conservatives to liberals to even some other people that have said this is one dynamo that you've got to meet. And so everyone I'm introducing you to Melissa Lantsman. Melissa, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So you're running in Thornhill. Tell us all, where is the Thornhill riding?
So the Thornhill riding is just north of the city, right up the middle. It's north of Steeles Avenue. It's bound by Bayview and the 400, and it goes up to what's called Rutherford, just past the 407. And it is where I was born and raised, and it is the place that I call home.
Fantastic. And it has been conservative in the past, and for quite a while. Incumbent is not running again, and so the probability is that you've got a very good chance of winning, correct?
Well, I've got some really, really big shoes to fill. We've had Peter Kent there, who's been an incredible voice for Thornhill. He's been an incredible voice on the Canadian stage, and he's been an incredible voice in the Conservative Party. And I'm very, very happy that he's on the campaign trail with me, and that hopefully that voters choose me to provide that same great service that he has given to this riding for 12 years.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been a war room director and spokesman for Doug Ford. You've been a vice president of public affairs for Hill and Knowlton, a large public affairs company. You've been a vice president, national public affairs for Enterprise Canada. You've been a contributor in CBC and a hosting contributor on CFRB. Is there anything that you haven't done from a political public affairs standpoint?
I've always been on sort of the outside, or the policymaking side, or the communication side on government as a staffer, and I learned a lot while I was there. And I figured out sort of what works, maybe what didn't work, how it could work better. And I'm in a position in my life right now to be able to be at that table, to make change, and to make life a little bit better for a lot of people. So that's my story. You've read my resume, but more than that, I was the first kid born in Canada in my family. I'm a child of immigrants. It's a great story. My dad drove a cab so my mom could go to school and I could sit at a boardroom table. So it is the quintessential Canadian story, and I'm so proud to be their kid.
Immigrants from where?
Immigrants from a little place called Odessa in the Ukraine, via Israel, via Belgium, found themselves in Thornhill about 45 years ago.
Fantastic. And I understand that you got involved in politics pretty early.
Yeah, I was one of those teenagers that took a keen interest in figuring out what this whole politics was about, what the adults were talking about, and why everybody was always fighting. And I realized really quickly that this is how you can have a major impact on people's lives. So I got into it. I've done a couple of other things on the side. I've been in the private sector. I've certainly been in the public sector. I think I have a really good, well-rounded view of good public policy in this country.
So why, as a young person, did you choose the Conservative Party?
I chose the Conservative Party because those align deeply with my values. I grew up in a fairly conservative household. One parent that was always conservative, another one that switched. And I think that the country is better managed under conservative governments. I think they look towards the future. I think they're better with the purse strings, and I think they promote Canadian values that we can all be proud of.
And why now to run after you've been, the back room for such a long time?
Well, eventually there's some tough conversations that happen, and the doors close, and those conversations take place with people whose name is on the ballot. And sometimes I haven't been part of those conversations, and sometimes I saw things that I didn't like or that I didn't agree with. And I know that the only way to have changed that was to put my name on a ballot. I'm so lucky to be in a position to do so. And I think the country needs a bit of change.
We're chatting tonight with Melissa Lantsman, who is the candidate for the Conservative Party in Thornhill, a riding just north of Toronto. It's Melissa, actually a riding I know very well because I've campaigned and canvassed in it because it was part of the riding that I was very active in. It was actually part of York North, a federal riding at one point in time when I was the president of the Young Liberals for York North at one point in time. So I actually know your riding reasonably well. We're going to take a break.
I'm going to invite you to come back, have a smoked meat sandwich with me, and just see what it's all about.
We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Melissa Lantsman in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. During this federal election, I'm trying to interview a bunch of different candidates from across the GTA that people recommend to me as people that are worthy of meeting. And last week we ended up meeting someone with a very good resume running for the Liberal Party in Aurora. And today we're interviewing someone with an incredibly good resume, Melissa Lantsman, who is running in Thornhill, a riding that has been conservative in the past for a long period of time, and just north of Toronto. And it's a riding that I know reasonably well. Melissa, I wonder if we could talk a couple of issues of the campaign. Was it the right time to call an election?
The people at the door certainly don't see that to be the case. It is. I got to tell you, this usually isn't a thing in Canadian politics where the reason for an election is even talked about 7 or 8 or 9 days in, and I'm still hearing it. Why are we doing this? We're going into a fourth wave, but at the end of the day, Brian, I see it as an opportunity, and I see it as an opportunity for change.
How do you think your leader has done so far?
I think, look, there's still a lot of baseball to be played in this one. I think that reasonably we've had a good week. I think the Conservatives released that platform at the very beginning. I thought it was a very smart move. I think it gives candidates exactly the right message to talk to voters about the plan for the future. And it doesn't hurt that the Liberals haven't found their stride. Not that they won't, but they haven't yet. So I think it's been reasonably good. And again, still a long way to go.
I have to admit, I haven't read the whole book, but I did flip through it. It's almost like a Jean Chrétien Little Red book. It's a lot of what I would describe as almost liberal policies and, the idea, but we're not even going to try to attack the deficit for 10 years. Is this conservative policy?
Look, I think it's a very reasoned approach to what we've just come out of. Look, we've had a rough 18 months, almost 2 years. We've spent a lot of money on that we don't have on things that we don't necessarily need, and we've got to start focusing on how to move forward. In terms of tackling the deficit, look, it's huge. We don't quite know the details of the books, but I think a very reasoned approach is to start on a path to balance to get us back to normal and to hold down the inflationary pressures and manage interest rates in this country so it doesn't put people out.
But you said you grew up in a conservative household. I presume that was fiscally conservative. This document is not conservative fiscal conservatism. It's far from it.
I think this document again is a reasoned approach to how we get out of this pandemic, and I think that it has a return to jobs. It has some incentives to get people back to work. I think it takes care of the silent pandemic that we haven't been talking about. It's got a real strategy to deal with opioids. The thing that I hear most at the door, other than why are we having an election and the rising cost of living, is how are my kids going to afford a house? And I think if you have a party that's ready for government, that's not talking about the things that the population is concerned about, then you're not doing it right. Okay,
so putting off tackling the budget deficit for 10 years is okay by you. Climate change. Tell us what you think of climate change. Is it real? Is it man-made? Is carbon taxes right, et cetera?
Yeah, of course. Like climate change is real. I'm the new generation of politics. The facts are hard to ignore. I don't know why we would, and we've got to do something that remains that keeps us competitive, that holds down a large number of jobs and plans our resources for the future in a way that's responsible. And I don't think that there's anybody in in my world, in my campaign, in the GTA that disagrees. And I think that Erin's put together a good plan. Suggest to everyone to read it. It's on our website, and it tackles meaningful reduction in emissions, and puts us on the path to figure out new industries where Canadians can lead again.
The last Conservative Party policy convention came out with a very different point of view on climate change and carbon taxes. And I think Erin O'Toole really shocked the Canadian populace when he came out in support of carbon taxes. Do you think people can trust Erin O'Toole and the Conservative Party to actually implement what he's currently advocating, or is the Conservative Party members going to convince him of a different strategy?
We've seen an Erin O'Toole who has come out strong at the beginning of the campaign. We've seen an Erin O'Toole that was consistently an underdog throughout that entire leadership and managed to win. We've seen an Erin O'Toole that's talking policy and that's very comfortable with Canadians. And I can't wait to see what's next. I want to see Prime Minister Erin O'Toole proud to be on his team and proud to carry that message.
So for him to win Prime Minister, he's got to at least get more votes than the Liberals. Up until a week ago, that looked like an impossibility. The Liberals were, running way ahead. Right now, I guess most polls think it's neck and neck. But most people think for you to win government, you've got to win the 905. And the last two elections, both Stephen Harper and Andrew Scheer didn't win the 905. And this radio station is in Mississauga. As you probably know, the Conservatives didn't win one seat in Mississauga, Brampton, and even Halton. And you lost the Minister of Transportation in Milton. How can you win the 905?
Well, I think it's look, the only poll that matters is the 27 or 28, 26 days from now. I have no idea what day it is. It's just one long day. But at the end of the day, I think that there is a lot of policy put forward by the Conservatives that speak and resonate to voters in the 905. Questions about affordability, questions about getting ahead, questions about our opportunity, questions about housing, questions about opioids. These are the things that we're hearing at the door. The plan is resonating, and there's an added benefit that we're not sure why we're in this election, and people might be a little bit tired of a prime minister who had the ability to do all of these things and still went to the polls regardless because he wanted a majority. People are not reacting to that well. My uncle, my second cousin, was treasurer of the Liberal Party in the David Peterson government, and he wrote me an email I guess 2 weekends ago, reminding me of what happened when David Peterson did a similar thing, calling an election advantageously earlier than he otherwise would. People thought it was a little bit arrogant, and we ended up with an NDP government. Do you think we could end up, surprise, with splits the way that they're currently looking with an NDP government? Oh, I don't pay attention to the splits and to the numbers. I am in this to win. I am in this to win the riding. I am in this to help my fellow candidates in the GTA wherever I can, and we play to win. So of course there's a chance. We wouldn't be doing this if there was no chance.
I think you're going to win. I think that the riding's been conservative for a long period of time, and there's got to be something really that you do shockingly bad, and or your candidate, your competition does incredibly well for that to be a different result. But the question is, can you win other seats in York? Can you win other seats in Durham, Peel, Halton, etc.?
Yeah, look, I absolutely think, again, I think the message is resonating. The message about affordability, the message about bringing jobs back, the message about a serious plan on climate change. These are all issues that come up all over the 905. And I think that being ready for an election, having a plan on day one, and having a leader that seems to be firing on all cylinders really early is turning the tide. Now, again, lots of baseball to play, so we can have this conversation a couple weeks from now, and we could be in a totally different spot. That's the beauty of campaigns; they matter.
You mentioned affordability a couple of times. What's the Conservative Party going to do for affordability? Everyone's been shocked at how the housing market has risen so dramatically, particularly in the 905 in the suburbs. in the?
Yeah, look, I think there are lots of things that have contributed to that. One, I think, is a lack of housing policy. I think on the third or fourth day of the campaign, Aaron came out swinging. The leader came out swinging with the housing plan that would start to cool the market a little bit, and put a focus on home ownership being within reach. I think limiting foreign buyers into this market, building new affordable housing in a way that makes a whole lot more sense than I think the Liberals have presented over the last 6 years. They had 6 years to do something about it, and the market's just become out of reach. Brian, I got to tell you, the average price of a home in a riding like mine is about 1 to 1.2 million, and the thing that I hear the most is that I am never going to be able to afford to live where I grew up. And that rips families apart, and not in any kind of negative way, but it creates some distance, and it has an effect on our communities. And we see a lot of condos going up, and I'm not a huge fan of that kind of development. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of densification. It doesn't fit with the area, and you can't raise a family in 500 square feet. So it's not the answer. We got to figure this out.
So if it's not densification, which has been the solution that, the places to grow legislation that the province of Ontario has passed and transit that would go up in the middle of your riding along Yonge Street into Richmond Hill.
Yeah.
What is it?
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to that subway being built right up Yonge Street, right through the riding. It was promised.
Take a look at that. You take a look at that subway that's gone to Vaughan, and it's created a whole new downtown. And the density in the Vaughan Metropolitan Center is significant.
I think there's still a lot of people that are looking for a single family home, and I think we've got to be able to. Have a mix of both, and a lot of that has to do with the province, and a lot of that has to do with the municipality. But from a policy perspective, I think it starts with Aaron's housing plan on making sure that affordable housing is within reach.
Okay, but if we're going to be living in single family homes, all of us, and not increasing density, you're going to have to. What? We're not
saying not increasing density at all. We're saying the density that needs to make sense with the area, and slapping just condos everywhere in the suburbs just isn't going to work.
Okay, I don't think people are suggesting condos everywhere, but certainly
I think that's what we're starting to see.
The places to go legislation. The city of Toronto has enacted new rules. If you're within 800 meters of a subway that or a transit node, you can build extra density. They're applying it historically to subways, now to GO train stations as well. And so you've got, I think, 2 GO lines that go through your riding, as well as a potential subway that's going to come to your riding. I had the former chief planner for the city of Toronto who said the biggest mistake we made was we allowed density along Yonge Street, but we didn't allow the density when we built the Bloor-Danforth subway line, such that we didn't get the kind of density, affordability, development, justification for transit that we needed. So you're saying no single family homes, and people that have argued. No,
I'm saying a good mix of both, Brian. I'm not saying only single family homes. I'm saying a good mix of both. And right now we're building. There's not a whole lot of spots to build single family homes in and around the 905. They certainly are being built, but we've got to have a smart mixed use of all of that.
Yeah. So the only place to build the single family homes, if that's what predominantly we're going to do, is the Greenbelt. And a lot of people thought Doug Ford was going to allow development in the Greenbelt. Now, I know it's a provincial issue, not a federal issue.
Entirely a provincial issue. So it's entirely a provincial issue. And we've got to figure this out alongside the province and the municipalities to make sure that we do this right.
So I think affordability is a massive issue. There's just no question. And it's not just affordable housing. It is, for sure. It is, as you said, reasonable housing that my kids, the next generation can afford to live within the Greater Toronto Area and not have to move to Georgetown or Barrie or wherever. But I don't think people have got it figured out, and I think it's got to be some combination of dramatically increased density along transit nodes and transit lines, and then some single family homes, no question, because that's what people want. That's the dream.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's more than just housing. It's the cost of everything going up. You're seeing it in gas and groceries. People are being squeezed, and then of course the reasonable. You hear this in the riding all the time. There's a lot of business owners, a lot of small business owners, a lot of people that have management roles in companies, and the cost of getting things here is growing, and that cost is passed on to the consumer. So there is a growing sentiment around affordability and opportunity and getting ahead, and they don't feel like they're getting it.
Another issue that you raised a couple of times tonight is the opioid crisis. Tell me, what are you going to do about the opioid crisis?
So I think first and foremost, we need a government that's going to do something about it, and one of those things, first of all, is a focus on recovery. And I think that we've seen a government let this crisis get rampant, and I think it's become worse in the 18 months that we've just had. So it's building capacity, it's building beds, it's building community addictions and mental health or treatment, and it's building some capacity in Indigenous communities with our plan says with culturally appropriate recovery, and the focus has to be on recovery. And then, of course, there's the other side of this, of how the stuff gets in, and the ability for the justice system to prosecute organized crime and everybody who's on the wrong side of the law by bringing the stuff in and putting it on our streets, because it's deadly. And if you really started to look into the numbers and how much they've gone up throughout the pandemic, it should shock everyone.
I think a couple of councillors in Toronto have actually commented that more people have died of opioid overdose than COVID-19 in their areas. What possibly can be done?
Well, look, I think you've got to build the capacity for addiction recovery. I think that's where the key is, and you would think that it's hit some communities harder, and that's absolutely true. I think you see problems big problems in St. Catharines and London and Peterborough, but it's everywhere. It's in our communities. And there just isn't somewhere to turn. There isn't somewhere to go. The wait for treatment is really long. The wait for detox is really long. And I think, I don't think the government solves all problems, but I think they need to drive a solution on this one, because if you let it get out of control, it becomes that silent pandemic that we ignored that gets too big to fix.
And not just opioids, but mental health, addiction of numerous different, both
Sure.
alcohol and other illegal drugs, has gone up dramatically during the pandemic. All the statistics suggest people have, had challenges with mental health during the last 18 months in isolation and social distancing, et cetera. So are you suggesting that a Tory government would dramatically increase funding for healthcare, for mental health?
I think that one of the the health promise. So mental health is, first of all, one of the pillars of our platform. The single biggest promise in the Tory platform is an increase in the Canada Health Transfer. And this is a Tory government that's talking about recovery. We help addicts and prosecute criminals. And I think that the solution needs to be driven by government on this one, because it's been ignored for far too long and it's getting out of control.
Okay, fascinating. What role would you like in a Tory government?
You want to play this game? I would like whatever role they will ask me to play. But what I do want is a seat at the table to advocate for both the people of Thornhill and a conservative party that actually speaks to the needs of people in a time that is crucial. The next 4, 8, 10 years in Canada is a make or break, and we can either get out of the pandemic and focus on a recovery and do it right, or we can slip backwards. I think this country is going in the wrong direction, and I want to be part of the solution going forward.
You're obviously incredibly articulate. You've been on 1010, you've been on CBC, you've been in public affairs, you've been in war rooms, etc. My sister was the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Environment when Peter Kent was the Minister of the Environment. And she said, he didn't know much when he started about the issue, but he was unbelievably articulate in explaining the issue. And that's what we needed. We need someone that could explain it such that people could understand. That could be a role for you.
I think, look, I've learned a lot from Peter. I actually worked with Peter in the, when he was at Environment for a short time. And I think that, I think that serving in any role that you are asked would be an absolute honor. I got to sit next to Peter, and I got to sit next to our Foreign Affairs Minister, and I got to sit next to our Finance Minister, the whole gamut of government. I certainly know how the place works and where the bathrooms are. So that stuff is not going to be a steep learning curve. But I would be happy to serve the people of Thornhill and hopefully be lucky enough to be in government. But
there's not one dream ministry that you'd like to mention.
Well, we'll save that for the next episode.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We're chatting tonight with Melissa Lantsman, who is the Conservative candidate in Thornhill in the upcoming federal election. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Melissa Lantsman, who is the Conservative Party candidate in Thornhill. There's a federal election coming up. I'm trying to interview different candidates from across the GTA that, frankly, people recommend to me as being stellar candidates that really deserve attention, no matter what party they're running for. I've interviewed a Liberal candidate in Aurora. I've interviewed a Green Party candidate in Mississauga. Melissa tonight from Thornhill. We've got others that I'm going to be interviewing from Markham and Brampton. It's been fun. So, Melissa, you said off the top that you didn't think it was the right thing to do to call the election during a pandemic. What's it like running an election during the pandemic?
So I gotta tell you, I've been involved in a lot of campaigns, and I think this is sort of the strangest election that we've been in, because none of the traditional things that when you think about campaigning exist. So, there's no events, there's no big barbecues, there's no horticultural festival or plant sale or bake sale or there's barely any farmers markets because everybody's still spooked about COVID, and rightfully so. And I think that people are taking precautions before the start of school, where they're taking it easy and doing their own thing. So not a whole lot of people out, not a whole lot of public events. So we've got to do things a bit differently. Want me to tell you how we're doing them?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, we hit the ground running about a month and a half ago because I had a sneaking suspicion there would be an election. And I am so glad to announce to all of your listeners that I was right. It happens once in a while. And we're doing a heck of a lot of door knocking. We've knocked on 44 or 45,000 doors. I don't know what the number is. So we're starting to hit the riding.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's starting to hit the riding twice. We're doing a lot of any events that we do, we have to create ourselves. So we're doing a lot of sort of these backyard barbecues. People, it's the new coffee party. If you remember, Gladys would have like the girls over for coffee and you'd go and talk to them. So we're doing a few of those a day. And we really have to reach voters directly in a way that we've never had to. And of course, there is the whole social digital aspect. Everybody lives on their phones. And I think that we've done that particularly well as a local campaign.
Fantastic. What's the reception of the doors like? What are people saying?
Well, the doors are, look, I think do they
actually open the door to you?
They do actually. I actually know. So there's 4 or 6 different types of there's 6 different types of doorbells. I'm paying attention to everybody's front lot and getting ideas for my own. And I talked through a lot of Ring doorbells. Those answering doorbells that people have installed. So I talk to people through their doorbells, and they probably see me on camera. I see a lot of that. But people are opening their doors and they're engaging more in the last week and a half. Obviously, because there is an election more than they were before. So that's why we're doing the riding again. But the reception at the door is really warm. And even if they're not a supporter, I got a freezy, a popsicle, and 2 bottles of water today. So people are good. Their intentions are good, and we're finding lots of voters in 34-degree weather.
Are you wearing a mask?
I am wearing a mask. I am one of those immunocompromised Canadians, so I wear a mask. I wear a mask to protect myself.
Are you wearing gloves? Do you shake hands?
No. I shake hands if the hand comes out, and I bump elbows otherwise. I'm an elbow bumper. I think we should keep that.
Do you quickly spray your hands with some sort of disinfectant afterwards?
Look, I live like with the amount of risk that most Canadians have lived with through the entire pandemic. I follow the public health guidelines, step away from the door. People are really receptive. Lots of people want to talk. Sometimes we'll come out on the driveway, take our masks off, and socially distance. There's different comfort levels for everyone, and I think if we're following public health guidelines and talking to voters, we're doing all the right things.
There's been a little bit of distance between your leader and the current prime minister in regards to vaccine passports and vaccine passports or negative tests. How do you come down on that topic?
Yeah, look, I agree. I agree with the reasonable position. You've got to prove that you're healthy, and so whether that's a personal choice to take a vaccine or one to take a rapid test. If you can prove that you don't have COVID, you're good to go. I think personal health decisions are exactly that. And I personally believe that for me in my situation, doing what I'm doing, I am pro-vax. I am double vaxxed, and if you had a third vax right now, Brian, I'd take it.
This issue, though, I think is going to be problematic because we called, or the prime minister called the election because I guess he thought the pandemic was not so bad that we could have an election, but at the same time, then he's calling for vaccine passports and that fourth wave is growing. So, isn't there some inconsistency in that?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of inconsistency in much of what we're seeing. On the question of vaccines, I think they're the way out of COVID, and I hope that we emerge from this stronger than when we started. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good out there. People are starting to get nervous, but we're doing all of the right things, and we need to learn to manage this. I think some of this pandemic has been hard, and it's been a long 18 months. And I think some of the public health measures, in my view, were a bit draconian. And rather than being on the outside of government, I want to be on the inside of government. I want a seat at the table, and I want to make sure that we get it right if it happens again. And I think that that's all that I can promise voters.
I was out in Edmonton and Calgary 3 weeks ago, and
oh, wow.
I spoke with a lot of people, and they were saying that conservative people generally were anti-vaccination, anti-mask, were questioning whether COVID was real, and were very negative toward any idea of a vaccine passport. Is this policy going to play with conservatives across Canada?
Yeah, I think it's a very reasonable policy. You get to make your own health decisions, and wherever you need a vaccine, you can provide a test alternatively. Look, I don't think this is a political issue. And if vaccine passports were that important this week, then why weren't they important last week? And it's easy to say that about a government, but you can't call an election and then sound the alarm bells about something brand new that you actually had control over when you were legislating. There was literally no one that voted against you other than the Conservatives. The NDP went along with everybody. So with everything that you did. So in terms of policy, we're not going to politicize vaccines. Get a vaccine if you think that's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for me, and I happen to think it's the way out of this pandemic.
The Liberals have been suggesting there's some distance between Erin O'Toole and the Liberals in regards to a woman's right to choose, suggesting that the Liberal policy is a woman gets to choose and that the Conservative policy is the doctor gets to choose, because I guess Erin O'Toole has said is that if a doctor doesn't want to provide an abortion, he doesn't have to, and he doesn't have to recommend that you can go see another doctor. Is there a difference?
So first of all, that's a decision of a college, and there is a built-in. He has said that he's going to ensure that doctors refer. Look, Aaron has said that he's pro-choice. I have said that I'm pro-choice, but that is not at odds with protecting conscience rights. And Brian, you'll know my riding, and you'll know the families that live in my riding, and I happen to be from one of those families that is a religious Jewish family, And in terms of protecting conscience rights, I just don't understand why why some rights are more important than others. So I do think that there is room in the conversation for conscience rights. I don't think that doctors should be performing things that are against their religious beliefs or their faith beliefs. That's not the Canada that we live in. That's not the pluralistic society that we live in. We don't say some rights are more important than ours if they're religious rights. And this is an attack on religious rights. So look, I think there is room in the conversation for both, but I don't know how much more he needs to say it than I am pro-choice. I think he said that a few times.
One of the bills that died was one on conversion therapy, and what this was, I guess, was a bill that said that conversion therapy, trying to persuade homosexuals that they weren't homosexual, was inappropriate, or if not illegal, died because of conservative lack of support.
Yeah, look, I think conversion therapy is reprehensible. I think it's awful. I would have voted against it. I know the leader has voted against it, and I'm proud to be on a team with a leader that supports the rights of LGBT Canadians and transgender Canadians. We have a lot of hearts and minds to win over in this country on a lot of issues. This is one of them, and I think that it's a good fight to have inside the tent.
Guns. Do we need stronger gun registration, gun laws, gun bans?
Yeah, like law-abiding gun owners. Like we're doing. Is this where we are in the campaign? We're just doing the litmus test of issues of desperation that the Liberals have thrown.
It's fun. See how
what else we got? So guns. You're going to run out of the big scary things that that the Liberals have thrown in the first week of the campaign, which you've been in this a long time. That usually waits till guns in our streets usually waits until the end. Look, law-abiding gun owners aren't the problem, and I think Conservatives have been clear about where they stand. We've got to get tougher on guns and gangs, and we've got to get tougher on illegal guns coming over the border. That position hasn't changed. It hasn't changed since I joined this party. When I was a teenager, and these accusations, I think, from the Liberals show the desperation and the lack of plan that is happening in this election, and I think they will be punished for it by voters.
A year ago, probably mostly because of what happened in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but also because of examples in Canada, we became really focused on Black Lives Matter and anti-Black racism. Do we do enough there? Is there institutional racism in Canada? What should we be doing? What would you be doing?
Well, to be honest, I think there is. I think there's racism everywhere, and there's particularly in my riding, there's a rising tide of anti-Semitism. There's been 7 anti-Semitic incidents that I know of just this week. So all Canadians are seeing something that's going on, and I think they're seeing governments that are not being necessarily unequivocal on denouncing it in the case of anti-Semitism, or having or having an action plan to deal with it. And I don't have all of the right answers, but I know when I see a problem, and I know when I don't know enough about it, and I know to seek advice when we need to find a solution. So I'm committed to working with those communities, both in the Black community and certainly in my riding, to figure out how to tighten legislation on hate in this country, perhaps to curtail this unacceptable rise in anti-Semitism or racism all across the board.
Should we be investing more money in the police or less money in the police?
I think we need a stronger police force, and I'm not sure that taking away their funds is going to help communities. So look, I'm in favor of a strong police force and strong institutions, and if that means funding them further, then that's what it means.
If Black Lives Matter was the issue a year ago, the issue this past year has been residential schools. What should we be doing?
What an absolute stain, I think, on our history, and one that I think gave the country some pause in sort of understanding what has happened to different communities and the the lives that they've lived since, and the things that have happened in their history. And I think the most surprising thing is I didn't really know much about it. I knew a little bit about it because I was interested in it in university, and I happened to read an article that piqued my interest. But this stuff went on until I was almost in grade 6. That's when the last residential school was closed. So look, I think there needs to be some pause, and at the same time, we can celebrate our country's history, and we can be proud of a history and reconcile with our past. And I know that our platform has some commitments to true reconciliation and funding for Indigenous communities. But if we're still talking about boiled water advisories, then we are doing something wrong. And we've been here for 6 years with a lot of promises from a Liberal government, and kneeling down in front of unmarked graves when we at the same time have boiling water advisories. So look, I don't know all the answers. I think that there is a good amount in the Conservative platform on how to make it better, and I look forward to learning and speaking with communities if I'm successful in going forward.
Well, I think you're got a good chance based on just the history of the riding, and frankly, based on an incredibly good interview, and you're answering all my questions incredibly well. So I think you're going to be there. So you're going to have to start thinking about exactly what you're going to do, because you're going to be one of those people that are going to be making those decisions. Maybe not in government, maybe in government, but you're going to be making those decisions and making those recommendations, and at minimum, sitting in those committee meetings, making decisions. And I think it's going to be after the pandemic, and maybe after the pandemic and climate change, the issue of the year. It's something that clearly we've got to figure out what to do. And as more and more of these graves are found, and we're finding more of them, there's a disaster. There's a tragedy, as you called it. It's a stain on our history, and we need to do something about it.
There's a lot that we need to fix, and I look forward to coming on and talking to you for another hour.
We're chatting with Melissa Lantsman, who is the Conservative candidate in Thornhill in the upcoming federal election. We're going to take a final break and come back more with Melissa with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I'm having a lot of fun grilling Melissa Lantsman tonight, who is the Conservative Party candidate in the upcoming federal election in Thornhill. So if you're north of the city in Thornhill, think about whether you want to vote for her or not, and check her out. You said that you've been very involved in anti-Semitism in the past, and in a couple of different organizations. Tell me a little bit about why and what some of your experiences have been.
Well, I've got. I certainly started as an activist in as early as school. But the reason that I brought it up is because it's been coming up in my community. Thornhill houses the single largest Jewish community in the country, and there has been a rising tide of anti-Semitic incidents. You're seeing swastikas on billboards and on synagogues and on religious schools and on non-religious schools in primarily Jewish areas, and this has become, this has gone up a lot since the conflict ensued between Hamas, the terrorist organization who is indiscriminately firing rockets on Israel. That's a big issue, and an attack on our democratic friends and our allies. They matter because they matter as to how we set policy here. They matter to how we set security policy, and they matter to who our friends are and what we say on the world stage. And it matters to the voters in Thornhill. And the reason I brought it up and I wanted to talk about it is because it's been brought up to me at least a couple of times a day on all of my canvases about what it means to be a Jew or what Jewish person in this country, and how nervous and scared and the amount of trepidation people feel about the increasing tidal wave of anti-Semitism under the guise of anti-Zionism. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about that. That's a unique. Not so unique to Thornhill, but it's got a large community where it comes up often.
You said under the guise of anti-Zionism. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think look, I think anti-Zionism is becoming the excuse for anti-Semitism, for Jewish hatred, and and I think that's becoming the case in sort of polite dinner table conversation, where you can separate. You can separate the feeling is that you can separate the problem with the state of Israel or Israeli policy or Israeli military policy, and not be a hatred of Jews. I think that line is blurred. I think it's gone, and I think many use that guise to actually promote a vicious and pernicious hatred for Jewish people.
What's the solution in the Middle East? Do you support a one-state solution, two-state solution? How do you think
our policy is clear? I think we go back to a policy where we had some moral clarity on the issue, where we supported our ally, and that we supported a two-state solution where two countries can live in peace and security. But there needs to be a partner for peace, and I don't think we're going to solve Middle East peace in the duration of this interview. But I think that Canada has a role to play and a voice in the world, and I think that voice has been silenced under the Liberals, and I look forward to a time where Canada can stand proud as a friend of Israel.
This week, we've seen some unbelievable images of people fleeing Afghanistan and Kabul airport, etc. We actually exited Afghanistan something like a decade ago, and the Americans are in the process of exiting right now. I think 3 days from now or something like that is the deadline currently. Did we get out at the right time? Should we have stayed in longer? Should the Americans stayed in longer? What is this war a disaster that we should never have got into?
I think we have a responsibility now that we were in combat. We lost 158 Canadian soldiers to that. I think that what is going on, the scenes that you're seeing, the women burning their diplomas out of fear of retribution from the Taliban, the violent takeover in a government who doesn't call the Taliban, terrorists right off the bat. I think all of that is problematic, but the most problematic is the fact that we've let those who helped us throughout this conflict down by not coming to their savior. There's a lot of people that helped us as interpreters, as fixers, as whatever you want to call it, that are looking for Canada's help, that are looking for Canada to be the light in a sea of darkness. And Afghanistan's really complicated. But what our responsibility is to get those that helped us out, and we're not doing it because Prime Minister is busy on the campaign trail.
Is it a challenge being a female in politics, or is that a fight that's a generation ago?
I think that's it's not something that I've ever necessarily had as an issue, but I think that there is a lot of things that we can do around the world to better women's rights, because I think that everything flows from more rights for women. I think that there are a lot of countries around the world that Canada can have a say in about the value and the role of women in society, where naturally freedoms and rights flow from that directly. So I'm from that perspective, I've been a fighter my entire life. It could be because I'm a woman. It could be because I'm from the LGBT community. It could be because I'm a young Zionist. I'm ready to take that fight in all of the different labels that people want to attribute to me.
You're fantastic. I've really enjoyed meeting you and loved questioning you and hearing your answers. So thank you so much for being so frank and forthcoming. Last question.
Yeah.
You've got 30 seconds to a minute at a door. The door's just opening. And I'm saying to you, why should I vote for you? What do you say to me?
Well, I start by introducing myself. I start by telling you that Peter, who is a great MP, is retiring because he needs a break. I tell you that I'm the new Peter Kent, and I tell you that I'm going to provide the same strong voice for Thornhillers and for Canadians as their representative in Ottawa. And it's a bit more than that, but you'll have to come to my riding and come check it out.
I should come canvas with you. Could be
You
fun.
should come
Melissa
canvass.
Lantsman, Melissa Lantsman, I said it again. Melissa Lantsman, who is the conservative candidate in Thornhill. What's the website they should go to if they want to give you some money or donate or take a sign or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. You can do all of those things at Lantsman.ca. It's very easy. Check out our cool social. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook. And now I'm even doing TikTok because they tell me that's cool now.
I got to tell you, I had a young lady that I was chatting with, maybe 16 years old. And she said, if I was voting, I'd vote for Jagmeet Singh because I listen to him on TikTok every day. I guess it works.
Good.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Good luck to Melissa Lantsman.
Thanks so much.
Good night, everybody.